So after the fourth event, we decided to actually do some math, sit down and do our homework, you know. So there's a few different ways you can look at the numbers, but just kind of a simple way that painted a real clear picture in this case. I figured out the percentage of roll stiffness front and the rear for each of the different settings I'd used at the different events. And knowing that, you know, at this first event, way too tail happy. Second event, tail happy but fun. Fourth event, I did in two different settings, so we had way too much understeer and then kind of a useful amount of understeer, like an amount that if it was wet or I was going to a track I didn't know that was high speed or something, and I wanted something that I wasn't worried about biting me or something, that would be a kind of useful setting. Because I want to get, so I've got the 4 adjustment holes on the rear sway bar, and I want it so the stiffest setting gives me the tail wagging fun I had at the second event, and maybe the stiffest is what I ended up with at the previous events, and then I wanted to know, you know, where would the sweet middle point be? It was easy to figure out from here what I wanted it to be, and I figured it out based on different spring rates and sway bar rates. Like if I wanted to then make everything a little stiffer, everything a little softer, what I would need spring-wise. So I've got all that here. So I set the car up, took it out, and it was beautiful. It just grips. And then knowing that you could always just switch that bolt in the rear and go slide the tail out at every turn if you want to. But you leave it where it is, and it doesn't bite. It just, you can chuck it in, you can get on the gas early coming out of corners, and it just hooks up and goes. And it is so much fun. I mean, when a car comes good like this, it just, you know, at some level, it's just this piece of junk that I made. But when it does something that you want it to do, you're like, hey, it's responding to the tuning, it's so great. It's a crate engine. I got it turnkey from Blueprint. It's based on the Ford 302 Windsor block. This one's bored and stroked to 347. It came with more power than was advertised. It actually showed up with just about 429 horsepower and 440 foot-pounds of torque, which power-wise, that puts it right kind of in the middle between the Mark 1s with the 289s and 302s and the first Mark 2s with the 427. And since my car weighs 600 pounds less, that's plenty of power. In the IndyCar, I put that engine together myself. I picked the different components for it, the heads and the cam and the valve train. And there was kind of a learning curve in getting that engine to hold together at 7,000 RPMs, which is a nice way of saying I broke it a lot. So with this one, I kind of wanted a ready-made recipe from somebody who knew what they were doing. And I don't rev this one as high. I've got a rev limiter on it set at, I think, about 6,300. Which, you know, we're going more for the low-end torque thing here than the high RPM screamer. Oh, and you're probably noticing that I don't have the proper GT40 bundle of snakes exhaust. That's $400, and they're a pain to get on and off the car. These are $80, so when they wear out, they're easy just to replace. I would love to put a 427 in here. I mean, a side oiler would be awesome, but even a stroked 351 Windsor. But that added torque would just start shredding gearboxes on this thing, which we should then talk about the gearbox. So the gearbox that you ought to have with an engine like this, a transaxle that'll take this amount of torque, that's about $10,000, which is about $10,000 I don't have. This is actually a 5-speed out of a Cayman, same as in the Boxster. And you might be saying, whoa, that's going to break. Yeah, but at $900, I could break 10 of these and still have saved $1,000 versus the other one. And, you know, I've got the Audi box in the other one, and this one's clearly beefier than that. I've heard the internals on this are almost identical to the internals on the lower end, on the base model 911s from the same year. which is still less torque than this puts out. Normally, in the situation, what you do is you just take it easy in first gear, because the gearbox is multiplying the torque from the engine times first gear and then times the final drive, and then sending all that torque out. And so in first gear, you're sending 5,000 foot-pounds of torque to the rear wheels. In second, it's only 4,000, and then lower and lower and lower. So usually, all I'd say is, okay, just be, don't dump the clutch at 4,000 RPMs in first gear. But what I found in this car is it doesn't have enough traction. Currently, anyways, with these tires, it just spins the wheels in first gear. I can actually get the wheels to spin in third gear coming out of slow corners at an autocross. It's an open diff too. So when I say spinning the wheels, I mean spinning one wheel. The nice thing about this gearbox is they are $900 from anywhere. You can go on eBay. They're readily available. The adapter plate to adapt the gearbox to the engine comes from Kennedy Engineering. They're a great company. They'll get you anything you need to mate one gearbox to the engine. The adapter plate, the flywheel, the setup for the starter. That's all awesome. I have to say I've been really, really happy with this engine so far. It runs great, makes a great sound, and the car goes like a bat out of hell. Now, okay, so we talked about the gearbox breaking, but I have another secret weapon here, which will keep the gearbox from breaking, which is I'm pretty sure my drive shafts will break first, because there's a bit of a story there. So on the Indy car, I found a guy who made me some custom drive shafts for it, and they've worked great and no problems, and they look good. So I went back to the same guy and said, hey, I've got this different gearbox, and the lengths are different, but here's the measurements. And he looked at the measurements and he said, oh, the output flange from the transmission, that can't be right. Nobody uses that size. It must be this next size up. And I was measuring, the gearbox was already installed in the car. I was measuring just with a ruler at like a funny angle with no light. And so I thought, okay, I just didn't get the measurement quite right. So I was like, okay, great. But he got sick or something, just started getting back to me less and less. And anytime I would ask, like, oh, well, hey, when are you going to get around to this? He'd be like, oh, sometime I'll get to it. And after about 6 months, I gave up. And, the rest of the car was finished. I was just waiting on the drive shafts at that point. And so I gave up and I went to the drive shaft shop and I gave them the measurements. And they made me the most beautiful drive shafts I've ever seen. I didn't know a drive shaft could be beautiful, but these were beautiful. I was so excited. I went to put them on the car and my heart just dropped because they didn't fit. This inner CV joint was too big for the flange on the transmission, because I had given them the measurements that this first guy had told me they must be, not the measurements I had taken. And lo and behold, my original measurements were right. And apparently nobody uses this size except the biggest sports car maker on the planet, Porsche. So this was in the middle of the pandemic, and the drive shaft shop worked hard with me to get the right size, and there were a few other solutions that they came up with that weren't really going to work for packaging reasons here. And so time went on, and I just didn't have my drive shafts. And I thought, I need to test the car. There's so many things on this that I have questions about, that things I'm trying that I want to see if they work or not. I need to be able to drive the car. It doesn't have to race or anything. I want to drive it around the ranch. I want to see it move and see if things are working. See if there's all the little problems that I'm going to have to take care of before I can actually race it. So what I did was I went and bought some used Boxster drive shafts and some new Ford T-Bird drive shafts. And if you're wondering, used Boxster drive shafts are 5 times the price of new T-Bird drive shafts. So then I took the Boxster drive shafts were tubes and the T-Bird drive shafts were a solid rod. So I cut the tube. Well, I cut both. I cut the tube at an angle and ground the T-Bird shaft down just a tiny little bit, and it slid in, and then I welded it. And you cut them at an angle. If you look on the internet, you'll see guys who have done this kind of custom drive shaft thing for race cars. You cut it at a pretty steep angle so that you have more room to weld. And the rod inside is cut at the opposite angle. So you think, oh, is that going to cause an imbalance? Really, you work so there isn't an imbalance, but even if there was, because it's in the middle, it's at a point like this spinning. It's not like a wheel where there's an imbalance out here. It's at the middle. I've never had a problem with these. Other guys do this with cars running 150 miles an hour, and they don't have any trouble with it. So I knew in theory this would work. I don't expect what I did to work. But anyways, so I did that, and it dawned on me afterwards that, I was increasing the amount of surface area for the weld by cutting it at an angle. But if I instead cut a V and then turned it and cut another V, so I then had 4 teeth, that would give me way more surface area to weld, and that could make it even stronger. Maybe there's a downside to that. I don't know. I haven't broken these yet, so I haven't got to try that. I was pretty sure this would break at the first event, and I spun the car a couple times and smoked the tires, and they're still there, not a crack in them, which has completely shocked me. I kind of thought this was, a temporary solution until the drive shaft shop got back to me, that I probably wouldn't race on it, and that if I did, it would break, and then I would try something else. Still haven't gotten the ones from the drive shaft shop. I've been racing on them, and they just haven't broken. There's a weird lesson in that. A lot of times, things you're sure are going to break don't, and things you're sure would never break do. And I guess it's just a lesson in how dumb we can be. Or maybe it's just me. I do plan on breaking these. I'm just going to keep pushing it harder. At some point, we're going to get stickier tires back here, and maybe we'll break them then. I know guys with GT40s that have broken properly made drive shafts, so maybe we'll make a video about that when that happens. So what's next? Jaguar D-Type, Lotus 11, or 23B? Really, I need to get this on track and test it at some proper speeds. And I'm anxious to try some shorter, softer slicks, get the car a little lower, and just see how fast it really is with some serious grip. But yeah, I just want to have a blast with it now. Just have more fun, do more developing with the different tires, improve as a driver, and just have some more fun. And what I hope you can take from watching this is the inspiration to go try something. If there's something you want to do that you think you can't do, go learn what it is you need to learn and start working on it and try. And yeah, you'll screw up and things won't work, and then you learn from that and you keep going, and the result is worth it. Because the journey is fun, and then the end result is even more fun. So I hope that you get to experience that, and thank you for spending your time watching this.